Hello my friends and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Alexei Reznikov, the defense ministry of Ukraine, made a little statements that the Russians interpret them the way they want to interpret them. Probably Reznikov had maybe a little milder goal making those statements. In reality, I think the Reznikov statements coincide with what's going on in reality. So let's see what happened here. This article comes from Sputnik. It's from today, the 7th of January 2023. This is the title, Bombshell Admission. Ukraine is, and I'm quoting, carrying out NATO's mission against Russia. End quote, defense chief says. The confession comes amid repeated statements by senior Russian officials, including Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, that the Western alliance has been waging a proxy war against Russia in Ukraine. Western media and some officials, including now the ex-Prime Minister Boris Johnson of Britain, have broadly dismissed these allegations. Kiev has allowed itself to be used by NATO in the bloc's wider conflict with Moscow, Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov has said. Okay, now I'm going to start quoting Mr. Reznikov. At the NATO summit in Madrid in June 2022, it was clearly delineated that over the coming decade, the main threat to the alliance would be the Russian Federation. Today, Ukraine is eliminating this threat. We are carrying out NATO's mission today. They aren't shedding their blood, we're shedding ours. That's why they're required to supply us with weapons. End quote. Reznikov said in an explosive interview with Ukrainian television. Now, if Reznikov would not have made the last statement, that's why they're required to supply us with weapons, that I think shows that Ukraine is eliminating NATO's threat. We are carrying out NATO's mission today. Because I tell you, if, for instance, it would have been a fight simply between Ukraine and Russia, then obviously Ukraine would not have had any requirements from NATO to provide them with weapons, because NATO has no obligation under any treaty to provide Ukraine with weapons. Zero. So if this guy says that's why they're required to supply, they're required because we are doing NATO mission today. Now, you provide someone with help because you think that you have an interest in that, because in this case, obviously, if you determine that Russia is your threat, you support these guys, they're doing the job for you. You can say, yeah, but you know, any country can help another country that's attacked by another country, you know. You can do that, and you don't have to be in an alliance. You actually, which is Ukraine, you do our dirty job, or I don't know, you just do our work for us in an indirect way. We didn't ask you to do that. Now the problem is, if you put this together, Reznikov's statement clearly stated that we are carrying out NATO's mission today, with other statements coming from, for instance, Angela Merkel, is that how you pronounce her? The former Chancellor of Germany. And if you get the former President of Ukraine, Poroshenko, when they said, well, yeah, we signed those Minsk agreements 1 and 2, but we had no intention to actually fulfill anything in there. The reason why we did that is to buy time to arm ourselves. Now you can see a lot of connections then between, hey, was that a plan? Now this guy says, well, we're doing we're carrying out NATO's mission. Now, again, you can look at NATO as a defensive alliance, but I think it lost that defensive alliance status a long time ago. And one of those moments was when NATO bombarded former Yugoslavia, 1999, Serbia. They lost that because you're not a defensive alliance at that point. You were an offensive bully. And you assigned yourself the title of, or ascribed yourself the title of, the police organization of the world. And if they don't like you doing something, they, I don't know, use the right to do whatever they want to you, regardless. So, not work within the system, but work within this system, okay? Now, there's no surprise to anybody. It's just that Reznikov said it, and he can turn it around very quickly, saying, yeah, it's just a coincidence. Just because our interests align at this point, it doesn't mean that we're doing their bidding. But on the other hand, this last sentence makes me, pushes it a little bit more towards, my convictions are that the whole thing was not just a coincidence and poor Ukrainians were just victims of the Russian imperialism. It's much, much more. And it's not me just waking up with this idea. You look at the facts. Look at previous facts that determined and got as a consequence where we are right now. And you can start with NATO expansion. No, NATO failure to disband after the Warsaw Pact was disbanded, right? So then that NATO was a response to Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact disbanded. Now, what about you? Why do you stay on? What's your purpose? No, we're just going to be a defensive alliance. Against whom? Against anyone? Okay, now you got to be a little bit tired to think that the alliance is against, Romania or at that time, or Hungary or Poland or something like that. It was obviously Russia. Russia was the only country that could create problems. Russia, if you remember, after 1991, after Soviet Union disintegrated and NATO said, well, we're good, yeah, nothing happened. Since 1991 to 1999, Russia was not admitted into NATO, was not accepted into it. It was kept as a slave. Suck your energy, suck your political, get your military and whatever counter information you got over there or intelligence departments, take over like a vassal state. Problem is, this crazy guy Putin came over, and he, again, if you remember from 1999, when he came, until I think 2008, he was playing ball. He went to Munich. He said, well, let's talk about things. Let's integrate. Let's make it. Let's make it a playing field. We can't just have the hegemony over this and that. Well, the American says, who are you to talk about this? You're just Russia. We're ready for you. And then the expansions of NATO, one after another. And you can say, well, that's okay, that's acceptable. But why is not NATO, let's say, in Australia? Why is Australia not NATO? North Atlantic Alliance. Oh, because it's the Atlantic? Come on, the terms should not play a role in all this. We have Antifa, anti-fascist, and you know what I mean? I can say, okay, we are the greatest democracy in the world, and let's say my country is North Korea. No, actually, is Democratic Republic of North Korea. Isn't that how it is? Something like that, DPRK or something. I can't remember, but the acronym is something like that. So anyway, you can call your name however you want. Your behavior dictates what you actually are, reveals. So in this case, I don't have any doubt. And then 2008, remember the Romanian summit, NATO summit, when Putin was invited over there, they said, well, we're going to admit one day Ukraine and Georgia. And Georgia. Why not Russia? Oh, Russia is too big. That's what former President Clinton told Putin when Putin was a prime minister at one point. And Putin said, was the prime minister? I can't remember but when Bill Clinton was still there. I know they met, and I think he was, Yeltsin was still around, I think. Anyway, when Putin asked, hey, what do you think about Russia joining NATO? And this was Clinton's response: no, Russia doesn't need it. Russia is strong on its own. It's strong, doesn't need to be part of NATO. Okay, well, because Russia was the enemy why NATO existed at that time, or at least. So they built, they pushed forward with NATO. 2008, scared the shit out of Putin. And then little by little they got to the borders of Russia. And then the overthrow of a democratically elected government in Ukraine, 2014, Yanukovych, I think Viktor Yanukovych government, remember? Orchestrated or helped, supported by outside services, carried out by internal people, not with the help of outside. That's the definition of treason. They were immediately recognized by those guys. Hey, you're okay, and so on. I mean, you can see, and then you can see how whole thing, how it escalates. Putin warned the West, if anything happened in Ukraine like that, we're gonna just get Crimea back. Yeah, back. Remember, Crimea was given by Khrushchev in 1954. Mocha, nothing, just take it. So, you know what I mean? And so on, and then Minsk I, Minsk II, where these guys signed documents, legal documents, became international law. What happened after that? Nothing. They armed these guys. And then Russia tried to get the Americans to sign, and the Western powers, so-called powers, they're not powers, they're Russia, they're US's little weasels over there. Didn't Russia try the whole 2021 to say, okay, let's put on the paper some security guarantees for us. You're getting too close. And the guy said, no, we're not going to talk to you. Who are you? That means we don't care about your security guarantees. What are you going to do about it? We know what you're going to do about it. There you have it. So, you know, if you are to analyze who's who, what's what, you have to look at evidence that you might not like, and evidence that you might like, or evidence that you don't care. Take all the pertinent evidence there is over there, put it together, analyze it, and you might find yourself closer to who's who, what's what. Now let's see what else is here. The official said Kiev was being constantly reminded by its quote-unquote Western partners that it, quoting again, like a real shield, is defending the entire civilized world, the entire West, from the Russians, and said that he personally has recently received holiday greetings cards and text messages from Western defense ministers to that effect. Well, Reznikov expressed absolute certainty in Ukraine's eventual entry into NATO, saying he was convinced, I'm quoting, that this is an absolute realistic possibility. Of course, they won't accept this political decision via consensus before our victory. This is clear. But after the victory, after all this ends and some kind of peace arrives, NATO countries, first and foremost, will be interested in the construction of their security architecture. They have seen their own weak spots. They have seen who is strong and powerful. Today, they are teaching us, but tomorrow our officers, surgeons, and even privates will be teaching them how to fight the Russians. Russia remains one of the threats to NATO and for Europe as a whole. End quote. The defense minister went on to claim that Ukraine is, quote unquote, de facto already a member of NATO. In terms of adherence to many of the alliance's standards, including civilian democratic control of the military, transparent and clear systems in weapons purchases and logistics, and blah, blah, blah. Now, Ukraine is the testing ground, he said. He said that we are demonstrating to our partners that this, I'm quoting, cooperation works and works very well, a kind of combat testing. Well, I don't know, it's the Russians are making, oh, this is the evidence. I don't think the Russians should be bothered by that or excited by it. If I would be, let's say, if I would be the Russians, I would not even care about it. I say, yeah, okay, that's what it is. We knew all along, so what? Move on. We have our goal to achieve. They have theirs, and that's it. No more talking. Too much talk. So this is not proving. What do you think? Everybody's going to stop doing what they're doing? Do you think everybody's going to start blushing? Do you think the world community will change and vote the other way around if this is a fact? No, because it's not based on morals over there. It's based on, is the United States going to retaliate against me as a country and as a leader of a country? Will these guys are going to, I don't know, orchestrate something that was orchestrated in 2014 Ukraine? Will I have a little revolution in my country? Will there be any sanctions in my country? Will my country come and hang me if I get in trouble with those guys? These are the questions the little countries are asking. Do you think that if they would be left alone and vote, in secret ballots, which United States does not want, for exactly that reason? Because the proportion of countries that would probably show some other allegiance would be different. But no, I want to see you. I want to see how you vote. That's how the communists did. I want to see. And you say, well, why aren't you open? Well, you're open with a guy who's going to take you around the corner and execute you after you voted the wrong way? I don't think so. And if you don't believe me, that's the way it is. Look how much pressure is put on certain countries in the United Nations. I mean, you have to be naive not to see this is the way it works. Threats, blackmail, regime change, and plain intervention. Humanitarian intervention, I might say. Military, yeah, but humanitarian. And in the meantime, a little bit over this and that. So Russians should not be very happy about it, like, see. They have to be already convinced themselves, and the arguments that they should expose would not be based on what Reznikov says, or Yermak, or what's his name, Zhmihal, or Zelensky. Useless. Grow some balls, follow your goals, and do what you're doing. What are you going to bend over and take it? Yeah, that's the expectation. Unfortunately, so far it didn't work. For some it worked. And unfortunately, the Ukrainian nation is in the middle. And Reznikov, these guys, our blood is shed. No, not your blood, their blood. Yes, the Ukrainian nation is shed, not yours. Or your little four guys over there. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.